Hi, everyone. I told you we'd be back. We're back with Chad Burns, folks. We're going to be talking a little bit more about those walleyes. You know, those fish that are swimming out there that people want to catch. A lot of people like to chase walleyes. I'm not one of those people. I don't consider it to be a strength of mine at all because it takes a different skill. It takes a different amount of knowledge than what I've got. Yes, you can cross some of these species back to back, but walleye kind of fit in their own little realm. So if you don't mind, let's bring Chad Burns on. Chad, how are you? How you like to be? Have you been on the show? It's his first time.
This is my first time on the show, Bob.
Now
Happy to be here.
Now it's going to be the last. He's going home. He's not going to say another word.
Thanks, everybody. We're checking out.
Goodbye. No, listen, we're at the Milwaukee show, the Milwaukee Sentinel show in West Allis, Wisconsin, and we are having a ball right now. Gentlemen, like I said, it's got on the side of me right now, Chad Burns. He is a walleye professional, folks. For those of you who don't know what that means this guy is among the best. He's out there, he's doing it, he's making it happen, and he's got a lot to tell us about the techniques he's using, possibly some of the equipment he's using. And I think we're going to start it off by saying, Chad, what is your favorite way of catching walleyes?
Definitely my favorite way of catching walleyes, Bob, is jigging.
Jigging?
Yep, jigging and casting. Number 1 and number 2.
Really?
Yep, number 3 would be trolling.
Wow, so you're kind of like in the Gary Roach school.
I am definitely in the Gary Roach school.
You know, I've known Gary for a long, long time, and Gary for years was the key person when it comes to spot-on-spot fishing, jig fishing on top of structure. Are you jig fishing on top of structure like Gary is, or are you jig fishing in a different way?
Jig fishing on structure some days, but a lot of times we're jig fishing off the structure a little bit just because of the water clarity that we're dealing with today.
Yeah. What tournament trail are you following this year, Chad? Where could people possibly follow your wisdom and your successes?
So they can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, just under Burnsy's Guide Service.
Burnsy's Guide
Service. Yeah, I'm on there every day with some sort of update, fishing report, some pictures, some products that I use, techniques that have been working. Very informative to follow. Have a great following on all the sites. Appreciate the following from everybody, very much so.
Awesome. Now, you said jig fishing. Is there a specific type of jig or a brand of jig you go to? I mean...
So as far as the actual type of jig, I love the VMC jigs. Just the neon eye jigs are great. I love fishing with plastics from Lure Lipstick. That's definitely, the 4-inch split tail is definitely my go-to plastic, especially in the cold water. We're also vertical jigging blade baits. I like the V-Rod by Acme Tackle. And we're also jigging with hair jigs this time of the year, especially when the water is still under 40 degrees. I mean, we'll be in the boat on Tuesday up in De Pere, and the water, I'm guessing, will probably be 34, 35 degrees, which is very cold.
That's for a tournament. Now you're going there for a tournament?
Nope, this is fun fishing. This is fun fishing on Tuesday, and then I'll be guiding after that.
Be guiding after that. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. We're going to get back into the tournament stuff here in a bit, but guiding, that's probably a portion of how you make your living.
That is 100% how I make my living.
100% how you make your living.
Yep, I am a full-time fisherman, Bob.
Alrighty, so where are we guiding? Where can our viewers, listeners, where can they find Chad Burns' favorite waters if they want to come fishing with you?
So I fish on the ice on the Winnebago system, and I fish open water between Green Bay and Winnebago.
Wow.
About 50-50 split.
Covering pretty good water there. The bay. Right now, Green Bay is starting to open up. Walleyes are in the river.
Yep.
They're moving to the river. The anglers that are up there right now, what would you recommend for them if they're watching or listening to what we're doing right now? What would you recommend to that group of anglers that are fishing the mouth up there of the river going into the bay?
I always start out with a mix. I start out with always a jig and a minnow. When the fish are negative or a little grumpy, especially like right now when we've got a big cold blast coming through, the fish can get inactive, even though the sun is shining. So a jig and a minnow is always a go-to. Jig and a plastic, and then probably a 3/8 ounce to a 1/2 ounce blade bait, depending on the current flow. Those would probably be my top recommendations to start.
What kind of depth are they focusing on? Are these fish shallow? Are they going to be real shallow?
There will be a portion of the fish shallow, but a lot of the fish this time of the year, they follow that channel up to the dam. It's like a freeway.
Okay.
Sometimes they're right in the middle of the channel. Sometimes they're on the edges of the channel. And a lot of what dictates that is fishing pressure.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of guys fishing right in the middle of the channel, a lot of times they'll be pushed to the edges, and sometimes they'll be pushed even farther when you get a lot of boats out there. I know one key to some of my catch rates have been fishing extremely skinny water. And I'm talking 1 foot to 3 foot of water.
Wow.
Where you would never think a walleye would be. Or
In
at least
the cold water, though.
Even in the cold water.
Yeah.
Just because of the fishing pressure.
Just because of the
The
pressure.
fishing pressure will, with the clarity of the water now, Bob, the fishing pressure really has a major effect on the fish.
At what point in the season do you start to take customers with you in the boat?
Starting on Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Yep.
So these anglers that are going with you are going to get a chance at that pre-spawn bite. They're going to get a chance at some potential double-digit fish while fishing with you.
Yep. I mean, you never know when you're going to have a 10-plus pounder jump on the end of the line.
Yeah.
And that's the fun of fishing from now until about the end of April.
End of April.
Yep.
That's a pretty good window, you think about it.
Yep.
These fish are out there. They're relatively approachable in the sense that they're shallow.
Yes.
You don't have to have a huge degree of technique involved in that. It's not like the skills of trying to feel one tap a bait down in 30 feet. It's an experience.
It is. And and the nice thing with fishing up into Pier or even the Wolf River, once that opens up towards Fremont and Orahula, is you don't need a 20-foot boat.
Right.
You can go out there in a 15, 16-foot boat. You don't need anything fancy. And and it's just, with the limit on the Fox River into Pier right now, it's 1/28 inches. So it's closed down basically to protect the fish while they're spawning, which is a great thing. But it's fun to go up there because of just the sheer numbers of fish that are in the river and just to knock the dust off.
Absolutely. What do you think would be an average catch in terms of numbers? Now, keep in mind, we all understand that weather moves things, pressure changes things, fishing pressure changes things. But if a customer going with you, what are they kind of looking at?
I would say 30 to 45 fish in the boated.
Yeah.
Per day is probably an average day.
Wow.
And you do have those, they're more rare, those 60, 70 fish days.
What would you, in terms of people preparing to come with you, are they bringing their own equipment? Are you supplying the equipment?
Yep. Bob, I supply everything except for whatever they're going to eat or drink, and then obviously their fishing license. They are more than welcome to bring their own tackle. If they have a favorite jig stick that they want to use, they can bring that. If they have a favorite bait they want to try, they are more than welcome to bring that, whether it's open water or ice fishing. I always encourage that if they want. Otherwise, I have everything they would ever need.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, folks who don't know what a high-end razor rod is like to fish with it, they can touch yours.
Correct.
They can feel the difference between what they normally use, and it's not a sales pitch at that point.
Yep.
It's reality.
Yep.
So they pick that razor rod up and they go, wow, hey, this is not only light, but this is sensitive, it's got power, it does the job. They're going to fish your rods.
Correct. And there's just, when it comes to the razor rod, their slogan of feel the difference. That pretty much hits you right between the eyes on what that rod is, what that rod does. Made in the USA, quality like nothing that I've seen.
Yeah.
And there's no easier way to sell it than putting it in all my clients' hands.
Yeah.
It was no different than pre-razor rod days for me. Once I had one, I knew what I had in my hands. I saw what my catch rate did, and I had to have more. Because a fisherman can never have enough rods.
Sounds to me like a truck pusher here, folks.
Can never have enough fishing rods, ever.
Truth of the matter is, actions, rod lengths, actions, you have a variety of them in your boat,
Yes.
obviously.
Yep.
So if a customer's coming on the boat with you, what is he or she looking at in terms of being able to experience the variety of rods that Chad's got?
So I've got everything from a fly pulling rod, which would be more of along the lines of like a 6-foot medium to medium heavy, all the way up to a 7-foot medium light with more of a faster tip, based on the wind conditions of the day, the current conditions of the day, how we're fishing. As spring progresses and the water gets warmer and you get more of these fish pushing into shallower water and are getting very active, then you can really start getting aggressive with these fish, throwing ripping wraps at them, getting more of a reaction bite out of them.
I absolutely love throwing sticks on big walleyes.
Yep.
I took a good friend of mine, Frank Schneider Sr., who's passed away, but I took Frank on a walleye shoot that I did and stuck 10 fish over 10 pounds on a single morning. That was before noon.
That's a
all
great
on
morning.
Stick baits, storm thunder sticks, and I'm telling you, Frank was beside himself. He also caught a number of big fish. And I'll tell you one thing, when you load up on one of those, let's say between 31, 32-inch walleye, you know there's something there.
You definitely do.
It ain't like pan fishing. You got a shot at a big fish and you know it. There's no question. And they will stop you, and then the first thing you see or feel is that head thrash.
Yep.
That head thrash just goes back and forth and back and forth, and you go, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing with walleye. They've always been kind of criticized, especially in the bass world. Nothing against bass fishermen. I love fishing for smallmouth as well. Everybody's like, well, they kind of come in like a wet sock. Well, you stick a 25-incher by drilling a hook into the bottom of its lip. It knows it's there. It's not happy, and it's going to let you know it's not happy.
You mentioned one thing in your statement there, and that was smallmouth, okay? Smallmouth inhabit that system too. You guys cross paths with those smallies this time of the year?
We do cross paths. Mostly, we'll get a few of them this time of the year, but most of what we come across this time of the year are a lot of muskies. The muskies are moving into the rivers to spawn. The whitefish are in the rivers to spawn.
You ever see any of those gorillas? Those big ones?
Oh, yeah. We had it was definitely a 50-inch muskie, no doubt about it. We chased it around forever 2 years ago. We had it up to the surface a couple times. Of course, we're using walleye tackle. I knew it was not hooked well where the fluorocarbon leader was, so I knew our odds of touching that fish were slim to none. But we got to see the fish, and we definitely hook into a handful of nice muskies every year in that river.
I had a gentleman that was on my live show, I think 2 years ago, that had video and stills of a fish purportedly in the 60-pound class out of the bay, caught early in the year while bass fishing. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the thrills, if you will, that, well, let's face it, you're in the proximity of it happening. That's not a guarantee. It's nobody's sitting here saying you're going to do it, but it could happen.
Absolutely, and that's one thing with Green Bay. I mean, I love fishing Winnebago. It's a phenomenal fishery. There's a lot of different ways to fish Winnebago as well, but you just never know Green Bay's growth rates on all their fish because of all the forages that Green Bay is filled with. Everything grows so fast.
Yeah.
Whether it's the smallmouth, the muskies, the pike, the perch, the walleyes, you just never know when you're going to catch a trophy fish all year long. Because a lot of times those same predators are all feeding on the same prey
at the same time,
and they're all mixed in, so you never know what you're going to catch.
You don't know what's going to eat.
Well, including, not that sheephead are any great table fare, but they're a lot of fun to catch, and they get to be gigantic on Green Bay.
Really?
Oh yeah, 15-pounders are not uncommon.
15-pound sheepy?
Yep. Looks like a garbage can lid.
Exactly.
Because they stop getting long this way and they get wide.
Wide. Yeah, like a permit.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much like a permit. Sponsors are something that every angler who's in the industry try to accommodate them. Okay, and sometimes that means a brand mention. Sometimes that means a demonstration with a lure or a piece of equipment or a conversation about the presence of that brand. And you are no different than anybody else. Me, you, or anybody else that's in this. You have to have relationships with brands in order to survive. You've got a few brands, and I know of them. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you're working with.
So, Razor Rods, who I'm actually here at the show this weekend working in their booth. They're one of my primary sponsors. They make a great rod, whether you're fishing for a crappie, to a muskie, to a salmon, troll, cast, slip bobber, whatever. Lifetime guarantee, made in the USA. I just can't say enough good things about Razor Rods.
And you really can't, it's not cliche. You can't beat those words up anymore. You take G. Loomis, Gary Loomis. Gary Loomis created a very good rod. Okay, it got sold out to a major brand. Major brand takes it offshore.
Yep.
It's a totally different rod than it was at G. Loomis. They're living on the legendary status of the G. Loomis. These rods are made here. Razor rods are made here in the States. They're made right here so people can, every component, wrap to rod, it's done here.
Everything, and that was a big attraction for me. Besides, before I was involved personally with razor rods, when I was just a customer with razor rods, dealing with the owner of razor rods directly was kind of a breath of fresh air, number one. And knowing that it was built in the USA from, back to front, front to back, the eyelets, everything, and they just stand behind their product. And you hit the nail on the head, Bob. There's so many of these rod companies that, like G. Loomis, that have that same story, that were just the rod to have at a certain point, that get bought out.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff in their components gets outsourced.
Yep.
And look what's happened.
I often tell people when I'm doing presentations around the country, I often tell people, I don't mean to be pushy when I say it, but I'm serious when I say, folks, if you're going to buy a piece of equipment, I don't care what it is, it's the reel, it's the rod, buy as high in that product spectrum as you can from a quality perspective. If you can afford to buy a $200 rod and that's where it stops, then do it.
Yep.
If you can afford to step up to a $300 or a $400 rod, do it, because at the end of the day, you're going to be further ahead. With a lifetime guarantee, you have no fear of it being broken. You're going to get another one. There's no reason not to do it.
Yep.
Other than what you can afford.
Yeah. Yep. And and the thing, obviously the price point when you get into a rod like razor rods, it, some people see it and they're like, well, I can go buy a $50 rod or a $100 rod, and that will get me by. But isn't it a nice peace of mind to know you can buy a rod and not ever have to potentially buy another one? And if it breaks, they're going to fix it or replace it.
Yep, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
you just can't even put a value on that.
Absolutely. Anybody else you want to mention?
Yeah, I'd love to mention Culver's. They're one of my great sponsors.
Like the food?
Culver's like the food.
Oh, okay. That being said, when we're done here, I want the name and address of the contact person, because I eat. Look at my girth. I eat. I would love to talk to the Culver's people.
We can get some butter burgers here and probably some custard.
Good.
So,
we're talking.
Culver's is a great sponsor of mine. Shields has been a great sponsor of mine. Ranger Boats.
Yeah.
Quam's Marine and Motorsports has been a great sponsor of mine. And the list goes on and on. I've got a lot of local sponsors back in the Oshkosh area. Geiger Auto Body, the Fox House Bar and Grill, great pizza, and a great beer.
And a great beer.
Is there a bad beer?
Maybe beer light.
Yeah, maybe beer light.
Beer light.
Yeah, Image 360, they're out of Oshkosh as well. They did the wraps on my vehicle and my truck. And like you said before, Bob, sponsors are definitely a huge part. If you're going to do this full time, having some great sponsors that have truly a great product that I will put my name behind and recommend to people, it's a big part of the success ratio in this industry for me.
Yeah, it's not only the value that comes in terms of the monetary side of it, it's also the relationship building that goes with it. Because knowing one brand can open the door to another brand, can open the door to another brand. Let's face it, there's networking in every industry you're in.
Absolutely.
I don't care who it is or who you are. You have to learn to network.
Yep.
And the more you do it, the more you cross paths with the various people, the better off you are.
I completely agree with you. You can never know enough people in any industry, whether it's the fishing industry, if you're a hairdresser, whatever it's going to be. Networking, and the more people you know, a lot of times the better off you are. And then getting networked in with the right people. Because let's face it, Bob, in every industry there's a lot of, I don't want to call them shysters, but there are some not so great people out there.
Yeah,
and you got to weave through some of that. And before you're going to put your name behind a product, you got to make sure that the product is good and the company's reputable. Because you don't want to recommend the product to somebody and then all of a sudden they have problems with it. So, because that's a direct reflection on you.
It's you. You just
Yep.
painted yourself. No
Yep.
offense about. Hey, with that being said, Chad, I'm going to give you the time to put your email address if you want, your website, your whatever, Instagram, Facebook. Get it on out there so people know how to reach you, people know how to follow you. Because again, we network with sponsors, but we also network with the other side.
Yes, we
We
do.
also network with the listener, the viewer, the person who wants to learn.
Yes.
And staying in contact's a big thing. Go ahead. Let's find out where we're going.
Yep. So if people want to reach me, they can contact me via phone, 920-366-4211. They can email me at fish, literally the word fish, the letter N, and then the word luxury with a number 1 at the end
Okay.
at yahoo.com. Or I am on, all my contact info is on all the social media platforms out there, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Under what handle? Same?
Yep, under Burnsy's Guide Service.
Burnsy's Guide Service. That's going to get you in touch with all the people that you need. Folks, that's about it. We're going to wrap it up here. We're getting toward the end of the day. We got one more interview coming up this afternoon. The noise just is not going down in here. But that being said, thanks for taking the time to listen to what we have to say. Thanks for the time to meeting Chad. Remember, we're on the water to have fun. The more you're in company with people who know how to have fun and can share it with you, the better off you are. You're going to be way, way far ahead by learning as quickly and as efficiently you can as you can from these pros. With that being said, God bless everybody. We're going to see you at the next interview. Bye-bye. I want to thank Chad for being here with us. Bye-bye, folks. We'll see you later.